What is up, everybody? Today I am joined by my good friend Harris Lane from Hank Lane. And I know everyone watching this knows who you are, so I don't have to give you too much of an introduction.
That's very nice to hear.
It is. And if they don't know who you are, they should crawl out from the rock.
I'm going to introduce it right.
Man, I've known you a long time.
Yes.
And I think to start, someone I've always admired in the industry because you've built a monster company from a business perspective, and as a business owner, I know what goes into what you do. Not just to build that business, but to constantly grow, evolve, take your business to the next level. You guys have done something I don't really think has been copied at any other city in the United States, maybe in the world. I don't think that there is another comparison to Hank Lane. And I mean that. I don't think that there's no other band company out there right now really that does what you guys do and executes with that many high-level bands, bar mitzvahs, the sound, just all the different avenues you've spliced into. I've known you forever. I love you, man. I love what you do, and I have a lot of respect for it. So I want to get into where it started, though, right? Because I know, as I like to proverbially say, we've all eaten a lot of shit to get to where we are right now.
And a lot.
A lot. So if you could just tell me a little bit who you are, and then let's get into where it started.
So, Anthony, my company, Hank Lane Music, was founded by my father, who's Hank Lane, and my mother, Deanne Cowart, and their friend and great musician, Mark Stevens. That was founded in 1978. And the premise behind it was to play music at people's private parties and have the music actually sound the way it should be, as opposed to some of the more old-fashioned, which is a industry term called club date bands, where, it was sort of a bunch of guys thrown together for the night of, and they would just kind of play whatever, sort of the typical quote-unquote wedding music. So my father at the time, he had a young band. So when he started playing at weddings, bar mitzvahs, charities, it was new, it was refreshing, and that's what made him popular. And, I came into the business, I was a teenager. I started at 14 years old. I was a roadie. I was my dad's roadie. I carried the equipment. He was a drummer back then, too, so I used to carry the drums, the sound system. We didn't have sound engineers back in those days. Did
it all yourself?
We did it all ourselves. That was it. And, all over the tri-state area, Long Island, the city, Queens, Brooklyn, New Jersey. We used to go from party to party. In those days, we would do 4 or 5 parties on a weekend. And it could be all over the place. You'd have a Saturday afternoon bar mitzvah in South Jersey, and then you'd have a Saturday night wedding back, in the 5 towns of Long Island. How we used to make it.
Without GPS.
Without GPS, without cell phones, without email. There was no internet.
Life was easier then.
Life was a lot easier then. I don't know how we used to do it, but we did it somehow. But it was a real good foundation for me and my other partners now, who really are just phenomenal. So, in building the business, I had a great start because of my father, and then building up now, I have great partners who also help me.
It's interesting you mention that, because I know so many people who were in family businesses. Mm-hmm. And I know so many sons who fucked up their father's business. I think the smaller percentage is the ones who've taken what they've had, because I think as the son of a business owner, when you're stepping into it, the pressure is tenfold. For me, when I started, I had nobody, right? I didn't have to inherit, so there was no pressure. The only pressure I had was put on myself. So I started with nothing. Whereas, you come into a business, your dad's built this name, but then you say at some point, I'm not just going to settle for that. I'm going to take this name and elevate it tenfold to where it was, which I've seen, from knowing you for almost 20 years now. You've constantly improved, and I commend you for that, because I think a lot of people can go. I'm sure we know many people who've tanked the family business. What was that pressure like, and at what point were you like, all right, Dad, we came here. I love you, but we're gonna. And then obviously your dad at some point had to say, my son's a smart kid. he's got some ideas. I need to let him run with these because this is going to become an empire now.
Right. Well, the first part of it was the performance. Coming into the business as Hank Lane's son, there was a lot of pressure because I didn't want to be viewed as like a flunky. I wanted to make my own name. In fact, before I even started becoming a band leader, it was suggested maybe I shouldn't call myself Harris Lane. Maybe I should call myself Hank Lane Jr. or maybe, or come up with a different name. My middle name is Scott. I should call myself Scott Harris or something like that, because he didn't want the pressure to be on me. He didn't want everybody to, in this industry, when you're riding on the coattails of your parents, people don't want you to fail, but they're looking for you to fail.
Of course.
So I didn't want to fail. I wanted to create my own name. And, fortunately, I'm a trained musician. I'm a guitarist I'm a trained guitarist, and I sing. So at first was establishing a name for myself on the performance end. Then after I established a name for myself, then I had to maintain that level. And then came sort of learning about the business side of it, in terms of sales and marketing and all the other things that come along with running a business, insurance and taxes and I didn't go to business school. So this has been a big one. I'm still learning every single day. So.
And I think that's for people who as you start to scale these businesses, right? It's funny how we get away from performing maybe as much or taking pictures in my case, and now it's you have you're dealing with the IRS, the accountants, the healthcare companies. Who's in the office having a bad day? Who's upset because you told them to work an extra 2 hours? Like all these things that we have to manage in order to grow. But if we don't manage those, obviously the business fails. But one thing I've noticed just from knowing your company so intimately, and you've really curated talent very well. And whether it's the Bobby at Tico, the Marcus Reed. So what have you done when you've seen someone and you've said, okay, and from knowing Bobby so well, at some point you said, Bobby, this kid, okay, or Harry, or Marcus, this kid has something. We're gonna groom that, and we're gonna cultivate that, and I'm gonna put that out there.
Right. Well, Bobby is someone he's a special case because Bobby originally was in one of the other bands at the time, and this is going back, has to be maybe 15 years ago, I think maybe even a little bit longer. And he started out, he was in one of the other Hank Lane bands, and I'll never forget this, I had a bar mitzvah to play at Camp Tawanda. The owner of the camp made his son's bar mitzvah at Camp Tawanda, and my regular singer, who I was working with, wasn't available that night. He had a family commitment. So my contracting department, they said, why don't you try Bobby at Tico out? And I said, I don't know, this is a big party, does he know everything? They said, well, he's new, but, try him out. So we get on a bus, we traveled 3 hours to like Pennsylvania, New York border, and comes a song that I think Bobby could do, and I throw it to him. This guy just lit up the whole place. So I came back on Monday and I said, the guy that I'm normally with, I go, put him in the other band. I said, I want Bobby in my band from now on. So then we grew together, and then we became such great friends. We even started a record label together at the time. And then I saw his ability to become a band leader. And then so I finally took a little convincing, but I convinced him to become a band leader, and he did. And then he's a success in his own right. I mean, he's really made such a tremendous name for himself. A guy like Marcus Reed was another guy that came in to audition, and I saw, the raw talent that he had, personality, charisma, and I said, this guy could become a band leader. And So, you have to be able, talent in this industry rules over everything, rules over marketing, it rules over sale. At the end of the day, it comes down to what I call the final four. It's because we play for 4 hours, and it's the end of the planning process. It's those last 4 hours that it comes down to. And if the talent is not there, it's everything that you've promised somebody for this special day, it goes down the tubes, and that ruins your reputation. So band leaders, musicians, we have a rigorous auditioning program, we have a rigorous training program, and we teach all these people the art of doing these private events, because there's a difference between being a great musician and then being able to perform at these private events where you have to know all kinds of music, everything from top 40 to 90s, 80s, Motown, swing, blues, disco. You have to sing, play, be youthful, have a lot of energy, and that's a rare person to find. So that's what we look for. And, fortunately, we've been able to, we have a lot of great networks that we go through, come through recommendations. So that's where we put the emphasis on.
No, I see it. I see that talent there.
Yeah,
I see like Sugar Lane now. Right?
Mm-hmm.
I see, obviously you saw something, I butcher her name every time, but
Chioma. She is, and I've worked with a lot of vocalists throughout my career. And I grew up, as a child, my mother, Joanne, she was a famous singer up in the Catskill Mountains. I've seen all kinds of entertainers. When Chioma came and performed with me, I have never worked with a more dynamic female vocalist in my life. Not to be, I don't want to say female vocalist, it sounds sexist, but, She was some performer that I said, there is no way that this person should have a band behind her. And now she's killing it, and she's unique because she does something different than the rest of us do, which I like about our company. The one thing that I think differentiates us from some of these other companies with multiple bands is that every band is unique. No two bands are really the same. It's not like there's one major flagship band and then every band is trying to be a carbon copy of the main band. Every band has its own style. At the end of the day, they're all great leaders, and they create a packed dance floor, but the style, the presentation is different, and that's what's appealing, I think, to all the different types of clients we have. So,
what would you say right now? Obviously, managing as many bands as you are, right? That's a whole thing in and of itself.
Yes.
Dealing with the wedding planners, the families, the day-to-day hurdles. What's the biggest hurdle you face on a day-to-day basis in running Hank Lane?
The biggest hurdle that I face on a day-to-day basis is you're only, and this is something my father taught me, you're only as good as your last performance. You could be on top of the world one day, but God forbid you have one off night. It takes a long time to recover from that. So the biggest hurdle for me and management is always conveying to the musicians and the leaders that this is, you're performing at somebody's special day. It's once in a lifetime, and you only have one shot to get it right. And it's also the little details. In addition to putting on a stellar performance, it's getting the names of the hosts right. It's making the proper introductions. It's working with the venue on a professional level. We're very venue friendly. We obey by whatever the rules of the house are, because you're coming into somebody's house. So it's all about, it's not only just performance, it's about professionalism, it's about paying attention to every detail, making sure you get in, all of the protocol moments, like, playing the right first dance, playing the parent dances, making sure that, people who are scheduled to speak, that they speak, and that's a band leader's job, is to work in conjunction with a banquet manager. And that's what we're always constantly conveying,
How is what you've done can change drastically, which I assume it would have with social media? Yeah.
Social media is everything right now. Technology and social media, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, that is everything. We are constantly updating our Instagram page. We're constantly posting things because the generation of the brides and grooms today, and even their parents, before they even go to a website, they go to Instagram. And that's why we've made such an impact on Instagram. And fortunately, right now, we have the largest following of all of the bands in the industry. I think today we were at 17,400 and counting. It's not 100,000, but compared to our people who we compete against, we're the largest.
But from what you just said too, like when you tell your band people this is a once in a lifetime performance,
Right.
I'm thinking about last night. I was
Right.
with one of your bands, Steve DeLisi is performing,
Right.
and I looked in the crowd and I'm trying to get a really cool room shot because of Steve. I want that. He's got this. He's in the middle of the dance floor. He's doing his thing, right? It's the Queen song, and everyone's into it, and he's killing it, right? The whole crowd is up. Except everyone has a cell phone in their hand.
Right.
So for photo purposes, kind of looks like shit, right? But
Sorry about that.
But from your standpoint, if Steve doesn't kill it in that moment, 150 people are Instagramming that
That's right.
10 seconds, let's say.
That's right.
And then everyone sees that.
That's right.
So I think what you just said is even more important now because there's no do-overs in that sense. It's going out there.
It's going out. And it's that moment that people will judge the whole company on, We encourage the band leaders and we encourage, everybody in the band and sound technicians to take as much footage as they can, and then they submit it to us so we can approve it, because sometimes it doesn't translate well. It might, when you're there live and you're in the moment, it's phenomenal, but then when you videotape it on a camera phone, it doesn't.
It's never intended for that.
Right. It doesn't translate well, so we're always careful in picking things that translate well for the general public. But it's been a tremendous tool for us because, look, this is this generation. People want to see what's going on out in the field. The days are gone when you could just sit with somebody and just describe what it is that you do. They want to describe what you do, but people really they want to touch it, they want to feel it, they want to look at it, and they want to experience it. So the next challenge for me and the company is creating sort of before your wedding happens, is making you feel like you're part of the experience to begin with. So if you're interested in Steve DeLisi, for example, we want to get you to know everything about Steve, everything about his band, what he does best. Show you clips of what he does, show live clips, not something that was just filmed in a recording studio. It's about really generating that live experience for you before it happens.
And I know for us, especially with pictures and Instagram and social media, the biggest challenge now is meeting clients' expectations.
Yep.
And I had a photographer on the show a couple weeks ago, and he goes, I had a client come in and they go, the sun sets in the east, right? I'm going, no, the sun sets to the west. They go, well, we want a sunset shot. I'm like, well, you're getting married on the East Coast, so you need to go to the West Coast or be facing west.
Or you have to take the shots at 5 a.m.
Or you have to take the sunrise.
Yeah.
But clients come in, they don't necessarily grasp that sometimes.
Right.
Like, well, if you want sunrise, it's east
Right.
and it's 5 a.m. or
Right.
it's the west side
Right.
and meatpacking and it's
Yeah.
7 p.m. It
Right.
just doesn't change. How have you guys started to manage as those expectations, which I feel in the past 10 years, expectations have multiplied 10 times over my first, so I've been doing this 20 years. First 10 years, really slow gradual growth. past 8, 9 years, exponential growth in client expectations, planner expectations, and family expectations.
Yes. We understand that the expectations are huge, coming from families, coming from planners, and we do everything we can to really create that experience. I think, with a band for, we'll use a wedding for an example, a band has to be larger than life. It's the most important part of the wedding, and then the photography is, of course, equally as important. Let me just make a statement, if I may, because those are the memories. Those are the memories. But the band is the entertainment, and it has to be larger than life. So, like what I do, if I'm not performing, I will go and I will see all the other bands, what they're doing, and without the client knowing it, I'll make adjustments, in their performance. I might say, well, what you're wearing isn't right. You need to dress a little bit differently. Something needs to pop a little bit more. The song selections might be off, or, maybe the band is being a little too generic in their song choices. A good band has to be able to take chances and create things, on the spot that will make them stand out from everybody else, So managing expectations, you certainly can't tell a client, well, I know you like this, but, live it's not going to be as good. That doesn't fly. It should be, what you see should be less than what it is live. So if you like the video, or if you like the Instagram post at your wedding, it's going to be 10 times better than what we're showing you right now. So, that's a difficult thing to do, but that's why we put a lot of pressure on the musicians and the leaders to go in there and then deliver it 1,000% every time.
I think there's something else I think you could give some good insight to. So to younger people in this industry who did not live through the economic downturn of 07, 08, and 09, we know the worst time in our lifetime, at least, absolutely horrible, right? Banks are closing. Those are our clients. Hedge funds out of business. I mean, there was hell on Wall Street. And that ultimately carries over to us. Mm-hmm. People who did have money didn't want to show they had money, because they were, embarrassed to rub it in their friend's face. And I think we've had an amazing 10-year run now. From 09 to 2019, the economy has been flush with money. Mm-hmm. Dow's at 27,000. We are headed to winter again at some point in the next few years, right? One thing I know that I can tell from working with you for now 20 years is when 08 hit, you started developing more talent. And all of a sudden, Bobby, some of those younger bands. So instead of buying into the philosophy of, the economy sucks, my business is going to go on the shitter, you yourself at some point had to say, no, I'm going to take advantage of this. I'm going to exploit this I'm going to work harder. I'm going to build even more talent, and I'm going to move forward from that.
That's right. That was a very difficult period for everybody. And in terms of entertainment, we're a luxury item. Mm-hmm. So we were the first thing to get cut. But it was a good opportunity in the sense that we were able to develop new young talent. Talking about expectations, even clients' expectations dropped because, look, we were getting calls from clients who were, vice presidents of these major Wall Street firms who said, look, I lost my job. I don't have the money for this. What can you do? And, so if they had a 10-piece band, they would go with a 6-piece band. We were flexible with pricing because at the end of the day, we also had to keep our musicians employed, whereas a lot of other companies sort of stood their ground and said, no, this is our price and we're not budging. And if you're going to cancel us, we're going to take you to court. We didn't do that. And this is, I owe this to my father and some of the senior partners who were in a recession prior to that.
They had lived through Black Friday.
They lived through Black Friday, and it was a matter of, look, it's like, we got to go into crisis mode now. If somebody wants to cancel because they lost their job or they don't have the money, then we have to make deals with them. Look, we had people who had bands. We have a great DJ company called More Than Music. Some of them switched to a DJ. Like, there were ways to work it. We managed to retain all of the events. And, look, personally, we had to take cutbacks, partners. We went months without taking a salary. But
and that's the thing people never see.
Yeah.
They think that it's funny when times get tough. They think we pay ourselves first.
Right.
It's the opposite. We don't, as the business owner, you don't get paid.
No.
Sometimes potentially for 3, 4, 5 months.
That's right.
And you're paying out.
That's right.
Oftentimes at your own pocket.
That's right.
Because if there's no money in the business checking, it comes out of
That's right.
our own pockets.
That's right.
So now we're not only not taking a paycheck, but we need to make sure, at least I know for me, I have 25 people working for the company now. So, during that downturn, right, things are bad. We know that, right? So I think people who have not lived through that, which a lot of people watching this may not have experienced that, or if you're only 20, then you're 30 now, you didn't get the brunt of that as a business owner back then. I know personally, I learned more in those 2 years as a business owner than I did probably my entire life.
Yeah, me too.
But you mentioned something that I think was a really gold nugget, is that instead of letting those clients walk away, you double down.
That's right.
And those are the clients that become legacy clients.
That's right.
Because they turn around and go, Harris was a stand-up guy.
Yeah.
He knows I lost my job. I had 2 kids in private school. I'm burning through cash right now. Lehman Brothers just went bankrupt. Goldman maybe, no one knew at that time.
That's
and
right.
people don't realize, like, our U.S. banking system may have collapsed in a matter of a weekend.
That's right.
And those are our clients. We're in New York, financial capital of the world. Those are the clients who maybe that bar mitzvah, instead of charging them 15, you said, look, I can cut back. I can do it for 11. I make a little bit. You still have your party. But now you're my client. And guess what? 10 years from now, when that daughter is walking down the aisle, first person she's going to call is Harris. Because there is a memory of that.
That's right.
Whereas if you burned that, now you pay the price for that 10 years later.
That's right. That's a great point, Anthony. And, I am now first starting to see the benefits of doing that, because at that time, all the bar and bat mitzvahs that were taking place, now the weddings are coming up. And they're coming back, fortunately, and there are a few people that do say, thank you for years ago. I know we had a rough time, but, thanks for coming through for us. But this time around, we're going to make up for it. This time around, we want to go all out. And it's great, and it's nice to sort of become part of the family with a lot of clients, because they use you for their personal parties over and over. And that was our main focus, was client retention, was keeping it and doing whatever was necessary to keep it. And it was like you said, it was a valuable lesson, because and I don't want to, I'm a realist, when it's going to come, we're going to be prepared for it.
I think people, there's a lot of unrealistic people in our industry specifically, because things have been so good for so long right now. We've really had this amazing, even after 2007, we were recovering from the September 11th debacle. That's
right.
Which, people go back 19 years. I can
right.
tell you, I opened my business a week after September 11th. Not a good time to start a business, period, especially one in the event business, because the phone didn't ring for like 3 months. Nobody was planning anything. Everything was canceled because everyone had someone affected by September 11th. I know you lived through that.
Sure.
And then 6 years later, we have the biggest economic crisis. And then we've had this really amazing run up. So again, like everything else, it's going to be cyclical. We're going to see a downturn. I actually think it'll be good for our industry this time, because over the past 10 years, our industry has taken on way too much dead weight. We have way too many people in the industry right now, and the market has become to a point where there's too many vendors to meet the finite number of people that are getting married.
That's true.
And we need, then that next flush out, I'm actually excited for when the economy turns down, because I'll double down on what I'm doing, and we'll grow even more. And we'll talk, I'll do all the things we just talked about. And I know other people, their ego's way too big. They won't do that, and they'll be out of business in 2 years, and that's fine. But
It's the evil plan that we have. Sinister
it's just hard work, you know, and it's a good plan. So going forward, right? You're here now. One thing I want to pick your brain about before we talk about 5 years down the line is I know you have kids.
Yes.
And I know you love your kids.
I love my children.
They're your life. How do you juggle, right? Being a dad, running a much bigger business than I do, and still finding time to see your kids, and then you're out on the weekends. And if you're not playing your own gigs as the owner of the business, you're out there. I see you sometimes. You're not even, you might have a night off, you still got to go check on, make sure the town's doing what they're supposed to be doing, like you just said, to make sure the quality.
A lot of caffeine, first of all. A lot of caffeine. How do you juggle family life with this industry? It's very difficult, Anthony. I just have to carve out time, you know, for my children. My children are the most important thing to me. Hi, Logan and Halen. And one of the biggest motivating factors for me to be successful is for their future, truthfully. You know, I love what I do. You know, I love performing. I love playing music. I even love the business side of it, which is tedious, but I even have grown to appreciate that. But the motivating factor is truthfully for my children. That's what it is. So, look, I don't get to spend weekends with them on a lot, or if I spend a weekend with them, you know, I'll have to throw on my tuxedo at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and they understand, look, this is what Daddy has to do to provide for us and put a roof over our heads and, you know, buy us toys and apps and games and camp and, you know, everything else that goes along with it. And, you know, they're used to it. I have memories of myself as a child when my parents used to have to, you know, Friday nights, they were getting dressed to go to work. You know, hopefully, you know, in a not too distant future, I'll, you know, be able to take my daughter, who's just turned 10. She'll probably start to go with me just to.
She's got the bug.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Oh boy.
Yeah, she'll hopefully start coming, you know,
that'll be cool.
To work with me, which will be fun. You know, it'll be good. We'll get to spend some time together, and you know, she'll get to see what Dad does, and you know, my son will be right behind us. So, you know, you have to do the best you can. That's all. You know, whenever you have a moment, a free moment, you know, you spend it with your children, and that's it. You know, that's what it comes down to. You know, instead of, you know, going out with friends to a bar, you just don't have time for it. Your children come first. So that's what I have to say about that.
Where do you see? Hank Lane is here now. Where do we see Hank Lane 5 years from now?
The way I see Hank Lane 5 years now is I'm very interested in expanding the company beyond the tri-state area. We just opened up in Philadelphia.
I know we have New Jersey.
We have
New
New
York,
Jersey.
Long Island, Manhattan, Long Island.
Manhattan, Long Island, New Jersey. We just opened up in Philadelphia. We do a lot of work in Connecticut and Rhode Island. We have a location in South Florida. My interest is to expand, go a little more nationally, go into areas. North Carolina, I hear, is booming. Washington, D.C., which we've done a lot of events in Washington in the past, but we haven't had a base there. So, you know, my plan is to expand it to more nationally, maybe internationally. Technology, I think, is the key to expanding this, because you want to be able to reach a wide audience, and again, with social media, and who knows what's going to go beyond that. That's where my focus is right now, you know, and expanding the company and going above and beyond. But yet at the same time, with that expansion, we have to maintain quality control. So that's the trick.
Yeah, always.
You know, because some companies expand, but there's no control over the quality, over the product. So I'm very dedicated that with an expansion that we still maintain the product. We still maintain the Hank Lane standards of, not only great music and make the party over the top, but the professionalism that comes along with it. And I think that's going to be my challenge for the next century, or the next century, hopefully, hopefully we'll be here another, right.
Something I ask every one of my guests is, if you could give yourself, looking back where you are today, if you could go back 15 years, give yourself one piece of advice that would radically change your life, something you wish as a grown man now you look back on and said, if I did this one thing, or if I knew this one thing and I would have changed that one thing, what would it be?
That's a great question, and I know the answer to it. The answer to it is, I wish when I was younger that I had more confidence in myself. We put a lot of pressure on ourselves, as you know, because we promise so much to the client and we take things so personally. When I was younger and I was more up and coming and I had the challenge of that I wanted to make a name for myself and not just be known as Hank's son, I put a lot of pressure on myself, and it used to create a lot of anxiety for me. And what I try and teach younger leaders now is be confident in yourself, be confident, because if you have a client who's a little bit more difficult, and
we have those.
Yeah, we have some of them. Most of mine are very nice. Once in a while we get, but if they're stressing you out, you can't project that as a leader. You can't project that onto your staff, because whether it's your musicians in your band, or it's your photography staff, or if you're an event planner, it's your event staff. It's not their fault. They don't know. You need to rally these people behind you as a team, and it takes a lot of self-control to be able to not displace that anxiety onto your staff. And when I was younger, I wish I did that a little bit more. If I had a job that was particularly stressful, or if I didn't feel experienced enough, I would show up and I would maybe be a little bit short with the musicians, and that's something that I regret, and I don't do that anymore, but it's something that I really try and teach the younger leaders not to do. Keep it to yourself, and after the party is over, go home and talk to your wife or your girlfriend or your boyfriend about it.
I think that's great advice.
Yeah.
Well, hey man, I want to be totally respectful of your time, Harris, because all we just talked about is a lot, and I know you have a lot going on. I want to commend you for being you.
Thank you.
I want to commend you for all you do in the industry. I love hearing your name on my jobs.
Thank you.
Because I know they're going to spend a lot of money on photography.
Thank you, man. My pleasure.
And you constantly, you raise the bar. You set a great standard. And I think for anyone in the wedding industry, you're someone that they should know and that they should look up to, and they should try to model their business after. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart, not just as someone in the wedding industry, but as a business owner and a businessman myself. Total respect for what you do. So I want to cheers you, and I want to thank you for taking the time to do this with me.
Anthony, thank you so much, and it's a real pleasure being here today. I really appreciate the opportunity, and I feel the same way about you.
Thank you, my friend. Cheers.
Cheers.